I just keep calling on the help of my peers, but their success makes me distressed. Things will be better when I disappear, bouncing from city to state. Nothing feels great, I'm a committed disgrace. If I could get up, hold my chin up, confidence is just a bluff for the weak. Might take a peek in my self-pity to realize it's selfishness for the meek. Just take these pills, it makes it better, but withdrawals will make you seize up and tweak. You gotta buy it every month, we change the brand, it's more expensive this week. I'll hold my chin up, keep this grin up like my mother, she can worry like me.
Howdy, everybody. Howdy. It is the SchuBros. We are coming to you live tonight. Over on the other side, over there, I've got my trusty co-host, Mr. Kyle. How you doing tonight there, sir?
I'm alive and well, buddy. Still alive, still kicking, as I like to say. I always get a chuckle out of people when I say that. I'm not quite sure why, but still alive, still well, still kicking. They can't catch me yet. I'm over here doing my thing, man.
Prove nothing. It can't prove nothing. So
nothing. But yeah, we're having a good time over here. Was watching the RNC convention a little bit before this, and then over here now, and we're ready to be joined by the one, the only Miss Asia Smith from California.
So just to preface this, Miss Asia is running for Congress, District 41 in California against Mark Takano, who is a bleeded heart progressive Democrat in the state of California. So, Miss Asia, from my understanding, your grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. You served for yourself. No?
No, my great uncle was a Tuskegee Airman, and my grandfather a 3-war veteran.
Okay, I apologize. So your great uncle was a Tuskegee Airman, your grandfather was a 3-war veteran, and you served in the Air Force yourself, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And by looking at your Twitter banner, were you a E4?
No, that's actually, I know people get confused because of copyright infringements and everything else, illegalities. I was actually a tech sergeant at E6, but I could only use that old rank for my logo.
Okay. A lot of people probably don't recognize that as a Air Force rank, but that caught my eye first thing because I was Air Force ROTC in college before I joined the Army National Guard. So
okay. Yeah, but because it's an old rank, I was able and get blessed to use that as my logo. But I was a E6 tech sergeant.
Okay. So for anybody who's watching who's wondering why I'm in purple haze here, this isn't a Prince music video.
Purple haze.
Right. Video.
Purple haze.
On a work assignment in Ohio, so it's just some random white wall in a hotel, guys. I'm sorry. This is what we have. So, but we do want to talk to Miss Asia. Miss Asia, you are running for Congress, and you are up against a progressive opponent who we would like to see not be in Congress anymore. Somebody who has supported AB 5, somebody who supported the progressive policies there in California, which have led to the highest level of homelessness, high levels of wage disparity, very high cost of living. Housing prices are skyrocketing while nothing's being built. What does California need, and why are you that person who can go take on Representative Takano and unseat him and then provide better for California?
Well, thank you both of you for having me on your show. And what I wanted to also add to my background, I was also a federal employee. So I was an Air Reserve technician for about 5 or 6 years. And when Takano gained his seat, because it was an open seat, he's actually the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. So when we were having issues at March Air Reserve Base, they always say, well, contact your congressman, contact your congressman. A lot of us did, and we never got a response. So I started digging into his background and seeing who he really was. And I noticed that he pretty much is a lump on the log. He's just there to collect the paycheck and just wait for Nancy Pelosi to give him orders. So when it came to federal issues, military member issues, I said, this is ridiculous. So I was talking to a friend of mine one day and I was venting and telling him all these things that he's non-responsive. He said, well, why don't you run against him? And I said, oh my God, I don't think I can do that. But he said, okay, you joined the military, you deployed, you're very courageous. Just try. So I did. I ran in 2018 for the midterms. It was a good experience. I didn't raise enough money like I'm doing right now, and getting a lot of more support within the community, but it was a great experience because I started to expose his voting record, his connection with the Anwan brothers, and now his connection with the Ukraine scandal. And I started digging into who he supports, and he supports far left progressive policies. And I tell people this: if you don't understand California politics, which it really needs to be its own political science class, it's really hard to understand California, especially because we have jungle primaries, we have a top two system. That's why we have a supermajority in Sacramento. We hold the most House seats. We have the most electoral college votes, and that's why we're in the shambles. One thing about me, I get along with pretty much everyone. Even I have Democrat friends who supported me because they said they're sick and tired of him too. So this time around, I said, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to really reach across the aisle and talk to the no party preference, the independents, the libertarians, and figure out who are the moderate Democrats. And I've been getting a lot of response from all of those other parties. And of course, my party as well, because I've been endorsed, and plus I'm a California state delegate. I sat on the platform committee, but it's reaching across the aisle and taking your message to the streets. And I'm getting more and more support, more endorsements, even from our local sheriff. I just got the Fraternal Order of Police endorsement for California chapter. And I'm waiting for our Sheriff's Association to bless me and give me the final word. I got my endorsement from my former DA, Rob Pacheco, as well. So a lot of people are waking up because they are tired, regardless of what party you are, and how California is ran from local, state, and federal. So the messaging going out into the neighborhood communities, the groups, the small groups, the big groups, and really telling them we need to make change, because as California goes, the rest of the nation follows. And right now, California, we have a Gestapo Governor Newsom who's going to be coming down to the district, I think next week. And I saw somebody who's putting on the mini protests and to protest about AB5. And that's really hurting our district the most, because we have a lot of small business owners and they're minority business owners. So when you're shutting down businesses and telling people they have to wear a mask in the shower and driving and everywhere else, people are getting tired of it. Yes, there is a COVID issue. I have friends who had family members who died of COVID, and it is a real issue here. But we're also suffering when it comes to small business ownership in the district, where Mark Takano is anti-small business. He is anti-school choice. He believes in high taxes. He really doesn't like veterans, even though he is the chairman of the veterans community and he just gives certificates out. But when it comes to the VA issues, when it comes to the March Air Reserve base issues, he is nowhere to be found unless Nancy Pelosi lets him come out.
So you touched on something earlier that I've always been kind of interested in / confused by, and you mentioned jungle primaries.
That
What is
started,
that?
okay, so every other state, I think a few states do this, but California, your party votes for the person that they want to go see to the general election. You have a closed primary, correct? So you vote for the
Yes.
Republican. California had a great, bright idea. Oh, let's make it fair game for everybody. So on your ballot, you'll see Democrats and Republicans. So whoever makes top two during the primary, those people go to the general election. It could be two Democrats, it could be two Republicans. And that's why we have the mess that we have now. A lot of the congressional representatives are majority Democrat, and also the state assembly and the Senate in Sacramento, because of the top two.
So with all the hullabaloo that we hear about voter suppression and voter discrimination, and what's the other one, Ross, that I'm thinking of? Voter, where you disenfranchisement. There we go, disenfranchisement. How is that not ruled constitutionally illegal? Because if it's two Democrats or two Republicans running against each other in the general election, you've just disenfranchised the entire other side of the party for the general election.
Well, I'm going to really probably ruffle some feathers. It was the Republican Party that actually started that here in California.
So the reason it's not
and it backfired.
illegal. Yeah, it's not illegal on that side, Kyle, because although they only have the option of two Democrats, they do have options of Republicans in the primary, and they are allowed to vote there. And nothing is stopping them from voting in the. They can also write in a third candidate if they want. There's always write-in ballots, so you can go and say write in whoever you could write in me if you wanted. But the point is that it's not voter. Voter suppression is a weird term because there's a lot of things that can be considered voter suppression. Polling can be considered voter suppression. Okay, so Miss Asia, you're a veteran. You talked about Mark Takano. You talked about VA issues, and we know the VA has not been particularly well run over the last several decades. Let's just say that. What are your specific ideas that you think would bring more value to the VA for our veterans who, as we know right now, what is it? It's 21 per day now, Kyle? Suicides per day?
Yes.
It's still over 20. The last I heard, though, it was down to like 21.2 and or 20.2. And the sad thing was that I was like jumping for joy that it fell from 22. And then the stark reality hit me in the face that it's still over 20. It's
yes.
God,
at
least it's not 22.
I had 5 friends who committed suicide while I was still in service, and it's the most devastating experience to know that your friends and a couple acquaintances died. We even had a suicide on base, and I knew the guy. I didn't know him personally, but I knew him just casually, and it is an issue. And it's also issue. My grandmother was also a Korean War veteran. She had stage 4 cancer, and she found out last year she was eligible to get benefits just being a Korean War veteran. So they knew she had stage 4 cancer. She was 89 years old, and it took 6 months for them to approve to get those benefits, and she did not see her check because she had died. And I think that is totally wrong. I was a former government employee. The bureaucracy of even trying to get medical treatment is unnecessary. I'm for choice. The president had a great choice program, and I know a lot of the far left progressives didn't like it. They said this is bad, this is horrible. But if you live in rural America, and especially if you live 300 or 400 or almost a day away from, or even 5 hours away from the nearest VA facility, but you're passing up all these hospitals, you can take that voucher and you should be able to go see your doctor of choice. And that's another problem too, is when it comes to the VA to get medical treatment, is the backlog. There's no reason why we can't hire more employees and have more satellite facilities. We do have a veterans facility here. It's about 20 miles away, Loma Linda, and is ranked one of the worst in this region. And even employees complain because they are over mandated with the patient and doctor ratio. And so they even asked me, hey, can you help us make these fixes so we can get more doctors and we can get more administrators? But the problem is trying to get more funding so we can hire more people. Now, I would like to see in my district a satellite service because we are a heavy veteran population here. Instead of driving all the way to Loma Linda and waiting 3 hours just to try to get parking and another 3 hours to see the doctor and they cancel on you, that's totally wrong. So it's a fixable fix, but cutting through the red tape of the establishment bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., that's what needs to be addressed.
Okay. So, and you bring up a good point because there's a lot of people who live very far away from a VA clinic, and some of those people are in Guam are in the Virgin Islands. And
Yes.
those people, people in Guam and those islands are actually highly represented in the United States military when you talk about percentage of their population that are veterans. But, they've got to hop a plane and get to Hawaii to get medical care. I mean,
sure
if
do.
thoughts, you're not thinking about getting on a plane and flying to Hawaii.
You know what's really bad here at March when it was active duty, we had a hospital and they had remodeled the hospital, brand new equipment. And guess what? During the Clinton administration, they rebracked March. They closed Norton Air Force Base, which was a horrible idea to do in San Bernardino because it made their whole entire city and that surrounding area to decline. They sent everybody here to March. And so they made it a reserve base and they just left the hospital empty with brand new equipment in it. And I said, this was the biggest waste of federal money I have ever seen in my life. After 20 years, they finally tore it down because of asbestos. But I said, you could have kept that hospital open or made it a clinic. So why would you even do something so idiotic like that? And those are the things that need to be addressed on the federal level is the fraud, waste, and abuse. And I know all those issues because, like I said, I'm a former employee. I know where all the bones are buried and the bodies are hidden. And so that's what Mark Takano won't address because he doesn't know how to address it and he's never served. So that history, that background, we need to have different facilities, especially you have Long Beach VA, which is terrible, the one in LA, and then San Diego, and everybody's just trying to get an appointment wherever they can. And these are senior citizens, these are disabled veterans, and they have to drive so far just to go to the nearest appointment. And we shouldn't be doing that to our service members.
Now, Trump recently passed VA choice. I'm not hallucinating about that. That did happen.
Yes, and I fully support that, but we need to implement it. We need to implement it in my district and really educate the constituents here because Mark Takano, he is a bureaucrat. He said this is a horrible idea. And it's like, why? Don't you want to do that for the veterans? If you're pro-veteran, if you're sitting on the VA as the chairman of the VA committee up there, of course not. He doesn't want to do that because of Trump did it.
So I do want to be fair. The first VA Choice Act was passed in 2014 and signed by President Obama, albeit begrudgingly. He didn't want to sign it, but it passed by such a wide margin that it had a veto-proof of margin that him vetoing it would have been very bad politically for the Democrats because even in the Senate, it passed by a very wide margin. So Trump has signed an extension and an expansion of that act that has made it much more palpable, much more easy for veterans to actually utilize the services. And hopefully the hospitals will start to realize that it's there and start to take advantage of it. And veterans will be able to take better care of it in their local area. Now, Asia, another hot topic right now, of course, is criminal justice reform, social justice, with what's going on with Jacob Blake, what happened with George Floyd, what's happened in Atlanta. This is happening. California has seen some riots, has seen some protests. The district AG of LA, her husband answered the door with a shotgun, and now he's being charged with gun crimes. Right. So, I mean, what's going on in California? What's going on around the nation? And what is some legitimate policy that you think could help defer some of these issues?
Well, I'm a big supporter of Senator Tim Scott. Hopefully one day I can meet him or reach out to him. He can reach out to me before I'm elected and after elected. And I really liked his prison reform bill. But the problem is that
he was Republican nominating it.
Well, that was the biggest problem. And he even mentioned that on the floor. He said, who is presenting it? Mark Takano, back, I think it was 2017, when prison reform was sponsored and from Congresswoman Karen Bass. She was the sponsor of the bill. I was looking at that bill, and it was actually a good bill for prison reform, good nonpartisan support, but guess who voted against it? Mark Takano. Then the same bill came up again. He voted against it. Now, third time he voted for it because I guess they probably put pressure on him, like, you better vote for this bill, because Aja and even my Democrat opponent who ran in the primary, Dr. Grace Williams, her and I both tag teamed him on that. So he finally pushed and voted for that bill. Now, when it comes to the when it comes to prison reform and also prison police reform, I am supportive of it. I was talking to my sheriff who endorsed me, Chad Bianco, and one thing about Riverside, we do have police reform, and it started back in early 90s, mid 90s, where we had a big incident here with Taisha Miller. She was shot and killed by police. It was a big issue where Al Sharpton came down, Jesse Jackson came down, the NAACP came down, and the Riverside Police Department and the Sheriff Department, they actually revamped their policies. So when it comes to those types of issues, do we have some issues here? Yes, we do. But we have a great sheriff, great police chiefs that act on it very quickly and investigatively. What I like to see nationwide is that goes along in other cities, such as what happened to Mr. George Floyd, which I thought and I saw that was the most horrific thing for that cop to do. And I talked to my friends who are police officers and even a sheriff. They said that was way uncalled for. I watched that video where the young girl who was recording it, she was pleading and everybody was pleading. And it seemed like he was just kept doing it just deliberately. I know everybody's going to get in a debate about how he died, what he died of, but to have your knee on somebody's back of their neck, I don't agree with. But unfortunately, that policy is legal in their city. And I keep telling people, instead of bashing and this rioting, go down and get involved in your local elections. Vote. Go down and learn the policies. If you want the policies changed, you need to start getting involved in your local city council when it comes to voting for your district attorney. That's where that really happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and sometimes you need to ask the state, you need to ask the federal level representatives to be a stronger voice to make those changes. The anarchy that I'm seeing with Antifa, especially, which I really want to make sure they're labeled a domestic terrorist organization, because I've been following them for quite some time since they came up. They are using a social justice movement, and they're not doing it for social justice for the minority community. They're just causing mayhem, they're causing riots, they're causing confusion and chaos. And it's really a bad situation when I'm seeing what's going on in Wisconsin, when I see what's going on in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. The 17-year-old young man that had the AR-15, I don't really think he had any intention of killing anybody, but I saw that video on Twitter with Andy No, who posted it, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And I'm going to just really watch out how that plays and how they're going to charge him, if they charge him, because there's going to be claimed as self-defense because they were chasing him. But I'm just going to wait and see how that plays out. But what I'm seeing with a lot of these younger people, I'll tell my age. I'm 41, so I remember 9/11. I grew up an 80s kid when the internet. So I've always paid attention to politics because my grandmother, it was either the news or watching Bonanza. And so at the same time, I look back and I look at, when 9/11 happened, I think we were so much focused on overseas issues where we forgot domestic issues. And a lot of these younger people that I see out in the streets, I kind of guess their age. They're in their early 20s, they're in their 18, 19-year-olds. So they were probably groomed to hate and to have this socialist, communist, Bolshevik attitude that we're just going to tear everything down. And I find that very disturbing, where I have not heard one Democrat denounce on what's going on. And a lot of this is going on in progressive ran states. And that's where a lot of people need to start waking up and start changing and start getting out to vote.
The biggest thing that I'm seeing lately, though, that is very discouraging for the Republican side is that the left is twisting this as
Yes,
saying that it's, it's happening under a Trump presidency with a
that's not
Republican-led Senate, but they're not, being honest and truthful in the fact that it's a Democrat-controlled House of Representatives, and these are happening in very Democrat-run cities
yes,
and states, and then oftentimes cities that have been Democrat for 20, 30, 40, 50 years,
correct.
and there's no Republican policies in place at all. And it's the Democrat policies that are governing the police force, that are governing all of these things that are happening, and they're wondering why the police are doing this. Well, it's the Democrats' policies that are being implemented,
But
and
that's the
you want to put
problem
them in
is,
more. You want to give them more power to put them in charge of even more stuff, and that just scares the bejesus out of me.
and it is scary, and that's what I'm telling my constituents and and I'm telling them every single day. I said we just became a blue district back in 2012, so we only have one Republican left on Riverside City Council. We only have one Republican left in my city, Moreno Valley. The two other cities, they're fully Dems, and I tell people you have to really get involved in these local elections. You have to get involved with the school board elections. You can't wait till a presidential election to get out to vote. You have to get out and vote in the primary, in the midterms. You have to keep on. You have to go to the city council meetings, the school board meetings. I don't even have kids, and I go to the school board meetings because I'm a taxpayer and I want to know what they're using my taxpayer money for because I'm a homeowner. And I'm very still involved in my local city council meetings, and I even go to my other cities in my district, their council meetings. And you're absolutely correct. But also the problem is that the Republican Party, we have candidates such as myself and Joe Collins and Buzz Patterson and other people that I know that are running in these districts trying to make a change and trying to reach out. But we do need the party supporting us, whether they believe in us or not. We are the ones that live here and we know how to message to our fellow neighbors and to the potential constituents. And we know what the issues and needs are. Give us the funding, give us some more boots on the ground and volunteers so we can do that messaging part. Don't pick and choose which candidates or two or three or four that you feel that are going to win it. We lost 7 seats here and they're picking 4. And to me, I don't know how that math works. I don't know if that's Bernie Sanders math. We lost 7 seats and you're picking 4-star performers. That doesn't even add up. So I tell people, and especially the lot of new Republicans that I even see on Twitter, you can tweet, you can do rallies all day, but my advice to them is to go to your local GOP headquarters and ask how you can volunteer for any candidate that needs help. Give them a list because we need a lot boots on the ground. We need people to help us pass out our literature to go door to door. And we need people to really start backing us and start helping us talk to a lot of the low propensity voters as well to make them understand if we don't turn this around this year, we will lose our republic. We will lose our freedoms. Look at California. We're losing our freedoms every single time the governor signs a new bill that even the far left progressives are pushing AB 5, which that bill went to a House bill, HR 2474, that the incumbent that I'm running against voted yes on. And that destroys a lot of independent contractor jobs, not only the Uber and Lyft drivers, but the hairstylists, the dog walkers, and whatever business that you have for freedom. And it is done in Democrat ran cities, but at the same time, we need to, as Republicans, to start really focusing on each district, each candidate, and help us out so we can start flipping seats and saving seats in 2020 and 2022 for midterms as well.
I agree. And I was actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to lead into that. We've seen the GOP pick and choose which candidates that they want to support in these races. And, for me, what that says, and Kyle and I are, we like to say we're conservatives, but we're not Republicans. We're not members. Maybe Kyle has joined. I'm not a member of the GOP party. But
I have not officially joined, but I am a member of several groups that are GOP. I am also a member of a libertarian group on Facebook. I kind of like to see both sides and see where they're both coming from and try to do my best to, intertwine the both and get the best of both worlds and then get rid of the worst of both worlds.
Right. So what I was going to say is, when the GOP picks and chooses like this, and there's districts that are heavily minority districts, that's the signal that sends to those communities, is that the GOP as a whole doesn't care about those districts, that we're not interested in those districts, that we're not willing to put the effort into those districts or those people. So, I've seen a lot of this from Jeff Charles, from some other on Twitter, that, that we're not going, the right always says, well, why do these people keep voting for Democrats? They just get what they get what they deserve for voting for Democrats. But often Democrats are the only option they have when they go to and there's even races where candidates are not even being run in those races, that they're running unopposed. So what do you think it's going to take to get the GOP as a whole to recognize that we need to make an investment in these districts? We need to make inroads. And I understand we're not going to win seats and flip seats overnight. No. But if we never start making the investment, we'll never see a reward.
I'm glad you brought up Jeff. I developed a great friendship. I started following him when he was writing for Red State. I like what he wrote. Sonny Johnson, she's talked about this too. And I like what you guys promote and put out there. And it's going to take grassroots, or I call people new people to the party, and even some of these activists, I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these activists to really start understanding how it works. It's not a complicated how it works, but if you're not going to the GOP meetings just to observe a couple of times, you will get to know each key player. Then you get to know, okay, who has the money, who doesn't have the money. Then you know the factions of the party, the Tea Party, the other factions, and everybody else. And that's what I did before I even ran. You get to know the Lincoln Club members. You get to know all these people, and then you start making your own conclusions. I can say that when the Tea Party came out, they were very strong, and they're still strong out here. They will help a candidate, and I've seen them do it. And even, the Lincoln Club is a great club, but they're more business, more high profile, millionaires, six-figure incomes. But it really is going to take everybody to tell the national and even the state levels, if you don't do it this way, we're going to lose so much. And I really wish somebody would just pull the president to the side and say, sir, Houston, we have a problem within the party. And it's going to either be done bottom up or top down. And as a former military member, when we had issues in the unit, where does the commander's boss look at? They don't look at us, they look at the commander. So when it came down to issues and why the unit is failing, the commander was always the one that either said you better shape up or you're going to ship out. And that's what's going to happen within the party. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen when Trump gets out of office in 2024. It is going to be a big battle if we don't start standing up as the little people and the grassroots people to say, we're going to make regime change here. There's a good Amazon video out there, and I recommend it for everyone to watch. I don't care what color you are. It's called The Fear of the Black Republican. And it talked about the guy who did it was actually white, which was really interesting. And he brought up the same thing. He said, why isn't there any GOP people running in my district? And he went to the party's headquarters and they said, no, we're just going to promote George Bush. And it's like, well, what about the other candidates? Oh, we don't know. We don't know. He started digging and digging more. And it's a really good documentary where it has Michael Steele in there, who, when he was our party chair for the RNC, said, okay, we're going to try to do a get out the vote for African Americans. And they just shunned him. They said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. Yes, I am a minority female, and to not support myself and even Joe Collins and even Rhonda Kennedy, who do you think our district is? We're majority minority, and why would you put, let's say, I know he's passed away, but John McCain to come here and represent? Okay, you don't look like the constituents. You can't relate to the constituents. I do. Rhonda Kennedy does. Joe Collins does. We are hardworking, middle class people that want to make change, just like our forefathers. They were hardworking, lower class bankers, teachers, pastors, and that's where we need to go back. A lot of this stuff that I see that's going on within the party, I'm not going to really get into because I am a delegate, but at the same time, we need to be more receptive and open to hearing a minority voice on how we should message to the minority community, not by statistics and not by data, because data is very old. Even though I look like a D+12 district, but technically I'm a purple district because of the voter rolls are never cleaned up. And that's another issue too here in California. Our voter rolls are not cleaned up. They're not putting pressure to clean up the voter rolls. Okay, we're going to support Aja because she has a great message. She can relate to the Hispanic and Latino issues. She could, of course, she's Black. She can relate to the Black community, even the Asian community with school choice. Let's give her a chance and let's give her a little couple of thousand or a couple of handful of college Republicans to help her knock the doors. It can be done. The Democrats do it all the time. They flipped Mimi Waters' seat. It was a stronghold of Republican seat, and they flipped it because they went out, they messaged, and they ballot harvest, and they took out so many term Republicans down in Orange County, where that was our last Republican stronghold, Reagan County, and they flipped it blue. Luckily, Mike Garcia flipped one of those seats back to red, and he has to run again. But it's going to take grassroots people like yourself, me, Jeff, Sonny, Felicia, everybody else to keep promoting this and saying we need to get some of these other activists on board and start going to these local GOP meetings and voicing our concern and volunteering so we can get and show that the establishment Republicans, we're going back to the party of Lincoln and the party of Frederick Douglass because we're sick and tired of being on the bottom of the totem pole.
That's very well said, Asia. I was going to bring up, the Republican Party actually was founded by African Americans or by Black people, and was very heavily Black Republican Senate and congressmen in the early days of the Republican Party, right after the Civil War, because the Black people were able to run as Republicans and win elections after the Civil War. And so for us to not say abandon, but turn a blind eye towards the Black community, it's just a dumb idea in my mind. You're not going to win. You're not going to win anything you don't try to win. And like you said before, the Democrats may have seen a very hard obstacle to overcome, but they at least tried. And then they chipped away, and they won. But the Republicans seem like if they don't know they're going to win, they don't even try. And
that's correct.
I'm seeing them slowly turn away from that mindset, and they're starting to embrace more and more minorities, embrace more and more people of all races, genders, creeds, orientations, and everything of that nature. Why you see the log cabin Republicans become a bigger and bigger deal and stuff of that nature. But they really need to, give an earnest effort for every single race out there. And I understand funds are limited and you can only spend so much money because you only have so much money. but you've got to at least put forth some effort, because if you don't try, you're guaranteed to lose.
Well,
I always try. I tell people my story. I tell people my grandparents' story and every story I could think of. And I had an interview yesterday with my former opponent, Dr. Grace Williams. She said, being a female minority veteran, it should be a plus. It should be a top. But at the same time, if I was a Democrat, I would have won my first election. And so it is really sad to say that, because I noticed with Democrats, they look at AOC. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out, where did she come from? What? Who the hell is she? But she won. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. I'm looking at some of these Democrats that won, and Katie Hill and Katie Porter, and I'm like, where did you guys come from? But their party will support them because they fit the district. They live in the district. They are women and they are minorities, and they got a ton of money. You can have all the money in the world, and I've seen this. I've seen Republican candidates, I raised $5 million, and lose because their messaging was terrible. I've seen TV ads, I've seen the glossy flyers, I've seen the billboards, and I'm like, wow. I was like, I wish I'm like that one day, in the nice promo videos all over YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, but they can lose. It's all about reaching your constituent base by going door to door. We have to put boots on the ground. It doesn't cost any money, but it's determination to want to win, to really make an impact and reach out to the community and say, we need to make change. And that's what we're doing differently in this campaign. 90% of all my money that I'm raising right now is going to be door to door, getting into the churches, getting into the small groups, and talking to the local leaders, and also people who are influential in my community. Because one thing I know, yes, the Democrats always say that we're the party of the rich, but technically they're the party of the rich because they're backed by Hollywood, they're backed by Silicon Valley, they're backed by George Soros and all these other billionaires and millionaires. But at the same time, we can flip and go back to the roots of our party, where they were farmers, they were teachers, they didn't have a lot of money, and they fought because they wanted something different. And that's why I always mention Frederick Douglass as well. And yes, you are correct. We have Black senators. I always try to push and educate people, especially on my Facebook and my personal page on Facebook, that Senator Tim Scott, somebody who I do admire, but we had other Black Republicans before him. And a lot of people don't know that. And when I start mentioning those things, I even get Democrats who message me. Even some of my Democrat friends said, wow, we didn't even know that. And of course, some of them, they go, well, the party switched. No, that's been debunked at least 100 times. The party never switched. And so it's also the education that I really feel that our party really needs to start doing, especially with the younger generation that's coming into the party, with the college Republicans and a lot of people who just switched to the party, and immigrants, to let them know, here are the Black Republicans that really paved everybody's way and all their accomplishments. And that's one thing that I really hope that the president and even other people such as ourselves really start putting out there what our foundation truly was as the party of Lincoln. And I know some people say, well, I'm a conservative. Well, that's great. But at the same time, we really need to band together, whatever faction that you're in within the party, and start helping candidates who really want to make a difference and make our country better forward, so we don't lose our republic.
Hey, she didn't say democracy.
I know, right?
Look, I'm so happy right now. So I do want to thank you. Okay, you mentioned a couple things there. I want to recap two of them. Number one, you said that the party flipping myth. We've heard this. Donald Sloan on Twitter, I went back and forth with him. I said it was a myth because they say that Barry Goldwater and Nixon went after the Southern Democrats. They went after the KKK members and the racists. They didn't prioritize the African American communities. That's true, and
That's true.
But they also didn't go after the hardcore social democrats down south, because we look at, social democrats down south. George Wallace, who was the governor of Alabama, who was, as KKK member, as racist as they come, he runs for president 10 years after Barry Goldwater, or 8 years after Barry Goldwater, and he runs as a Democrat. So if the party switched, I'm pretty sure George Wallace would have been one of the first ones to be on the flop there. But the other thing you mentioned is that, we're the party of conservatives, but, I want us to start become the party of individuals. Not, the right is supposed to be the party that doesn't care about all the social justice warrior stuff or the identity politics, but yet the right kind of does. We still want to push certain candidates in certain places and things of that nature. And what I want us to be is that if you have good ideas, I really don't care if you're female. I really don't care if you're gay. I really don't care if you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic. It doesn't matter to me. Good ideas are good ideas. Logic is logic-based, no matter who you are. Now, we do have a comment from Blake Chapman. He writes in and says, to first tell you, thank you for standing up for your principles. He wants to know, if elected, what are your top policy priorities in your first 180 days?
Thank you. Thank you for writing in. My first top priorities is number one is national security. I live and breathe. I served. I was involved in anti-terrorism, personnel security, national security, cybersecurity. So it's making sure that our men and women who are serving in uniform are fully funded, and especially that the base in my district will not ever be on the BRAC list for a very long time, because it'll be very detrimental for my community to go through that again, or the base will close. And I can talk later about why my base is so important, especially on the West Coast. Number two, and I know I'll probably get backlash, but that's okay. I'm a big girl and I rock the boat and I'm not afraid to get wet. Homelessness is dear and heart to me, because I never really told this story, but I'm starting to tell it now. My dad died homeless, and it wasn't because he was mentally ill. My mother may have a different opinion, but he wasn't. And what it was, he couldn't get housing. And my dad had a lot of health conditions. He had heart disease, he had diabetes, you name it, my dad had it. And I didn't hear from him for months until my stepmother, well, they were divorced actually. My stepmother said they found him dead in his car, and he was dead for a week. And I just couldn't believe it. So that was a really big issue that me and my brothers and sisters had to go through. But when it comes to homelessness, especially in California, the local level's not doing anything. The governor thinks by just pushing everybody in the house with no rehabilitation, especially with mental health issues, everything's just going to be fine and dandy. I come from a family of two nurses, my mother and grandmother. My grandmother specialized in mental health. That was her expertise. So learning from them about mental health treatment and getting federal money and federal help down here, because California, if you don't know, we have the highest homeless population in the United States. And then it comes to Hawaii as well. That's where my dad died. He died in Hawaii. He had a bright idea to go there, and when it comes to that, especially concentrating on mental health, there's a lot of homeless people that I'm encountering. I'm about to meet with the lady who runs an organization. There's a riverbed out here where there's a lot of homeless people that need mental health treatment and they're not getting it. And that's what I want to bring on the federal level. My third one would be, let's see, my top two. My third one is to really push opportunity zones here, and to make sure that small business owners are not going to be affected by HR 2474. I hope it does not pass the Senate, and to really start bringing more opportunity zones here in this district, because we am bringing more innovation technology. I'm a big STEM supporter: science, technology, engineering, and math. We have excellent, and I'm telling you, I don't care what party they are, but we have some really bright young kids here. And every time I encounter them or talk to them, or I bump into one in the store and say, hey, what are you studying? Well, I'm studying technology, but I have to go out of state to Texas and try to get a job, because if you followed anything, especially in California, we've lost everything.
I was about to say thank you for Tesla.
Yeah. And we should have kept that here. And I said there's no reason for these companies to leave. Is to really fight. I don't know if those companies will ever come back to California, but I want to fight and bring them to my district. I was even tempted to reach out to Elon Musk and say, hey, come look at my district. I got plenty of land. And to really start focusing on on the opportunity zones in STEM and technology, because if you're noticing, a lot of the younger kids are going to college and they're majoring in degrees that I've never even heard of, and they complain they can't find a job. Okay, first of all, why don't we start in putting back trade schools? Like when I was in high school, we had trade programs. You can learn how to be a florist, a nail person, and auto shop. And a couple of my friends, they turned that into businesses. Like one of my good friends, he learned air conditioning. Now he owns an air conditioning business. I'm like, wow, this is great. I should have paid attention to you more. Maybe I could have married somebody who owns his own air conditioning business. But anyways.
I'll say here in Texas, that's a very vital industry. Those guys are in high demand and make good money.
Right here in California too, especially where I live, is hit 112 the last week here, and I can't take it. But to start bringing those opportunities here, so the young people in my district, and even people who want to have a career change, I would really love to see an aerospace industry here. My mom used to work for Rockwell a long time ago in the 80s and the early 90s, until Bill Clinton got rid of a lot of the space industry, and she loved that job. And so a lot of them turned into Boeing, to Northrop, to Raytheon. I would like to bring that industry here because they can work at public and private partnership with March Air Reserve Base alongside with the other tenants at March that we have when it comes to homeland security. And also, we, of course, the president started a Space Force. Start bringing some of those entities here in the district. So those are my 2-3 top priorities, and especially when it comes to the job market, because we have a median household income of $55,000 to $56,000 a year. And I said, this is terrible. And we're the second largest county in California. It makes no sense for anybody to make those low wages here. We need to be higher wage, and we need to bring more innovation, technology, opportunity zones, and investors, so we can make sure that the younger kids that are leaving out of high school or even in high school have a place to go to work and make a good, decent living, so they don't have to be struggling, and they say, well, I can't afford a house, but they'll be able to be at least first time homeowners.
Yeah, one of the things that Ross and I experienced growing up, we're from a rural area in Texas, is that when people get of age to go to college or trade school, they go to trade school or they go to college, and then they never come home.
Yes.
They go find jobs elsewhere. Ross and I both are prime examples of that. He went out to Midland, Odessa to get a job in the oil field, and I got a job here in Bryan College Station working in the telecom industry.
Wow.
Neither of us could really get a job like we have today back home. Ross
Correct.
technically could, but he wouldn't get paid nearly as much as he is.
And that's a good point to bring up. Even the nursing out here, my mother and grandmother, they worked in LA a lot because nurses got paid higher out there. So I grew up a latchkey kid. So, coming home from school, making sure, okay, I'm home safe, do your homework, don't open the door for nobody. Yes, I grew up very strict when it came to that. And waiting for my mother and grandmother to come home late at night and hit that commute back to LA or Long Beach. And so they did that back and forth a couple of times until my grandmother, she said, okay, I had to stay out here. This is too much. But no, you're absolutely correct. I hate to hear a great graduate saying, well, I have to go to Tennessee, or I have to go to Texas, or I have to go to Arizona, or even Las Vegas, which is only about 3 hours away from me driving, and because of the job market. And that's one thing that I don't understand with the current representative. He's a prior teacher. He always runs on teacher for Congress. But what have you done to help the the students here? What have you done to help the millennials and the Generation Z? He hasn't done anything, but he always claims, well, I'm a teacher for Congress. And so my thing and my conclusion with him, no, you rather promote Bolshevik and progressive tactics and ideology rather than saying, okay, you need a job, then we're going to bring an aerospace company here. We're going to bring science and technology here because it's going to be a very competitive world pretty soon, if not already is, when it comes to innovation, because China is our biggest threat. And we need to get a lot of our young people prepared and trained if they want to go into information technology and cybersecurity, which is my background. So if they cannot join the military, at least they can get a good civil service job in the government and even the private sector to learn how to combat these issues, especially in my area, because like I said, I'll go back to March Air Reserve Base. We are the largest reserve base installation on the West Coast. So when it comes to these threats, when it comes to deployment, we need more people on the military side, the civil service side, and the contracting side. And that's what I want to build up here too. Also the medical industry, where we're growing and growing, and we need to have more younger people prepared because the patient and doctor ratio is very low. We don't have enough of the administration. We don't have enough of the doctors and the nurses. So we need to start pushing those great career fields so they have a prosperous and a good future.
Yeah, and we've seen that progressive policies in California. We keep hearing from the progressives in California that if we could only tax the wealth more, if we could only tax companies at a higher rate, and we would earn all this tax money and we could just redistribute that down and it would work and everything is great. And while I'm not specifically a proponent of Reagan's trickle-down economic model, we do know that job growth only happens when the economy is moving. Jobs occur. So just to recap a couple economic facts about California, Washington, Oregon, New York, four of the most progressive states in the union that have been consistently progressive now for decades and have had pretty much free run to pass whatever progressive policy they want. California has triple the homelessness rate of the United States, triple the homelessness. They have a higher than average unemployment rate. They have a higher medium wage by 10%, but they're 150% higher in cost of living. So standard of living is subsistently lower than the rest of the nation. So much so that the LA Times even said that LA is the poorest area in the country, even worse so than Alabama and Mississippi when it comes to poverty rates. Because although you might make a little bit more money in California, it costs so much more to live there that that little bit of money really doesn't help you. So as conservatives, we've kept saying that these policies are going to A, cause prices to go up, and B, not cause wages to grow up. But yet progressives in California keep telling us that if we just double down, if we just haven't gone far enough. We haven't done real socialism yet. You know, we've only done socialism light. It didn't work. But if we could only just really do it, we could make it work.
I think the major issue you see with that, Ross, is that Elon and anyone else who's got half a brain and some money in the game say, I could stay here in California and get taxed to death, or I could go to Texas.
Yeah.
And we're welcoming in left and right. Every time we turn around, I'm finding a new friend that's, hey, I'm from California. What the hell are you doing here?
And don't vote for the left.
I can tell you this election season, we do have a lot more Republicans who are also running on the state level alongside with us federal candidates. And I'm really close to two of them because my friend Christopher Hagi and Ali Bazari, they're both running for assembly districts that overlap in my district. So we're helping each other out when we get ready to hit the ground by dropping each other's literature, by doing more meet and greets and talking to constituents with these numbers, because we're saying the same thing. We need to start going and start explaining to the constituents and the citizens here in each district. And that's where I go back on the party. You have people who do run, but it's the help and the manpower that we need to get our message out. We complain about, okay, we're sinking faster than the Titanic here, which is true. But at the same time, we have that silent majority, not just Republicans, but the silent people who are the low propensity voters, who are Democrat, who are independents, who are libertarians, who are no party preference. They say, well, we need to hear these candidates more. Well, for us to get out there, yes, we can go out there, we can look at the voter rolls, but we need more of the funding and the resources so we can start sending out more mailers. So we can say, okay, we're going to send a team out to this part of the area of the district and start talking to the voters saying, hi, Aja's a great candidate. She wants to bring this job growth. Mr. Hagi wants to lower the state taxes. Ali Mazari wants to push more or whatever issues going on, vote for them. And that's why we need, and I keep telling people, please don't make fun of us here. Please don't. But we do really try. A lot of us have said, okay, we're going to go on our own and we're going to really push our message to the average person because we are average people that are running because I don't want to be pushed out of my state. I was born and raised here. I am a typical California girl. My real attire is flip-flops, some skinny jeans, and a tank top. That is me. But of course, I can't wear that everywhere I go because I am a candidate. So a lot of times I have to wear a suit. But if you see me in the grocery store, that's what I'm wearing. And I'm talking to people about issues. And then I introduce myself. Hey, I'm running for Congress. And I shock everybody because they look at me crazy. Number one, you're a Republican. And number two, you're Black. And no, well, actually, number three, and you're a female, but you like what I said. So I gained that trust and I gained that confidence that I understand these struggles going on here in California because I grew up in a single parent household. We weren't rich, but my mother and my grandmother worked very, very hard to make sure that we weren't poor, but we had struggling times as well. So when I start telling my story and my message to anybody that I meet, especially at this time where I'm just promoting myself, hey, come to my fundraiser. Let's do a Zoom meeting. Let's do a phone call. Let's do a coffee, even before COVID. And let's start spreading the word because if we rely on the party, if we rely on, well, the Democrats are going to take it again. No, the Democrats can lose very big because number one, I think you mentioned this before, was AB5. And AB5 is the biggest killer for this state and it's at the federal level. And I keep telling people, pay attention to these federal bills that are coming out of the Democrat controlled House because the people that are voting for those bills, those federal representatives, they're coming from California, the Maxine Waters, the Mark DeConos, the Adam Schiffs, the Nancy Pelosi's, and all of the other radicals up there in Congress. So if you're thinking that only California is a problem and for us to just fall off a cliff, guess what? These same representatives are putting those California state bills right up there in DC.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and those progressive policies, they're trying to make them nationwide.
Yes.
That's part of the reason they hate Trump. They hate the Trump tax returns.
Yep.
I had a great video the other day where I went through a lot of like the MMT arguments as an economist and made arguments. Unfortunately, I
It looked
apparently
like this.
the entire time. So an hour long. If you can read lips, it's a terrific video. It's still there. You go watch it. But if you can read lips, it's a terrific video. I promise. Somebody transcribe for me, please. But the point is that we've seen them throw a hissy fit over Trump, and they're looking for any reason to get rid of him. I'm currently in Ohio. I you go up to the north, the Midwest, they hate Trump up there, right? They're good, hardworking folks, and they hate Trump. But I can tell you since I've been here, I have seen hundreds of Trump signs. I've seen African-American people wearing Trump gear. I've seen white people in Trump gear, Hispanics in Trump gear. I've seen Trump everywhere. I have seen one Joe Biden sign tucked up in a corner, kind of laid up against a barn. And I mean, I was really looking is the only reason I really found it. So it seems as maybe the silent majority is starting to get a little more vocal. And maybe they're getting a little more vocal because they're seeing what's happening in cities like Kenosha, Wisconsin. At least,
Right.
I mean, the Bernie bros said they were going to burn Milwaukee. At least they're in the right state this time. Do you think that there's any latent Trump supporters or maybe even some independents or moderate Democrats who are seeing this happen to these cities and are starting to see what these conservative values maybe are a little bit more about, even if they are about the social justice side of it?
Oh yes, and I kid you not, and I tell people, even some people in my clubs, they're like, "Wow, who's that guy?" I said, "I have this retired cop who reached out to me and said, I'm so sick and tired of what's going on. I want to help you with your campaign, but I'm a Democrat." I said, "That's perfect. If you're tired of it and I'm tired of it, and we have at least 5 or 6 issues in common, come on and help." And he has been the most hardest working volunteer. I kid you not. He has helped me get endorsements that I never thought of ever getting. And he goes around and takes my literature. He's helped raise money for me. And he said, "I'm just sick of it." And he said, "Well, do I have to switch my party?" I said, "No, I don't want you to switch your party. I want you to show the Democrats that, hey, your policies do not work. You went too far left." And I'm helping Aja, who is a Republican, who wants to fight for our constitutional rights and save our republic, and make our community safe because the incumbent's not doing anything. Then I have another volunteer who's an independent. He said, "I want to volunteer. I'm an independent. My girlfriend's a Democrat, and we're both voting for Trump." And I said, "Well, there you have it." Then I'm getting other people who are saying, "Yeah, I'm sick and tired of what's going on too. My party went far left, Nazi, socialist, communist, Maoist, Marxism. And I was brought up as a blue dog Democrat. My parents were Kennedy Democrats, and we're going to help you." So I'm getting that response. And some people, like my friends, they said, "We voted for you," but they don't want to blast it out because they're too scared for retaliation. So I am seeing in my area in particular where the moderates are coming out and saying, "Okay, we want to get to know you more, even though we may disagree on some things," because I'm very pro-life and they're still pro-choice. But I said, if we have something in common, we want to make sure we have good paying jobs. We want to tackle this homeless issue. We want to stop this radical Sacramento bureaucracy and federal issues, because they said they've never seen in their entire lives. I was talking to an older gentleman. He was a Democrat all his life. And he said, "I voted for Trump and I'm voting for him again." Because he said, "I'm 70 something years old and I've never seen anybody be treated as so badly a president as what the Democrats are doing." And he said, "I'm going to vote for you." And I said, "Perfect." Now, I do know Mr. Larry Elder personally. And the first time I met his brother before he passed away was a few years back. We had a big function called Unite IE out here. And I was one of the guest speakers. And when I spoke and when I pleaded my case and everybody support me, his brother, who was a Democrat who lived in my city, he said, "Girl, you got my vote. Bring me, and I'm going to spread the word." And that was a great accomplishment. And I keep telling a lot of these candidates, and I see some candidates, and I bang my head, and I think I've been out to Jeff as well privately. I say we get out there and start crossing party lines and say, "You can't. Aren't you sick and tired of what's going on, even in your own party?" And start saying enough is enough with the Nancy Pelosi's and the AOC's and the Rashida Schiffs and the Mark Tucanos. We have to start having decent conversations with this, because if we don't take back this House of Representatives and the president is reelected, guess what's going to happen to him per the Constitution? They are going to remove him from office, because I guarantee you, we lose the House, we lose the Senate, and they're going to impeach him, and it's going to be a big Civil War uprising. I'm coming to Texas. I know you guys can fight, but at the same time, I said the main thing is to start taking back the House of Representatives, because per the Constitution, that's where the power is at, and that's where we can start showing that we mean business, and we're not going to let these socialist Marxists take over our country and keep having these Portland's and Wisconsin's and Seattle Antifa groups and all these other radical groups out there. I can't even keep up anymore. And to really stop what's going on, because I'm telling you, the people in my district are very scared. And I've talked to a couple of them, even elderly couples who say they want to move. And I'm like, where are you going to move? They're spreading everywhere. So moving is out the question. Where we did have a rally somewhere out here. I didn't go to it. Something told me to stay home. But the Antifa came. It was a small group. But guess what? They go there, small group. We're going to scope it out to see how many people are going to be out there. A lot of MAGA people, a lot of the constitutionalist people, a lot of the Second Amendment people, the Tea Party people, and they come in bigger groups. And I tell people that, do you really want that in your community, in your neighborhood? Well, you better, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Greenpeace, you better start realizing on who's going to be on that ballot in November 3rd. Is it going to be me or Mark Takano? Yes, I have an arm, but I'm going to be there to protect and defend our constitutional rights because I'm sick of it as well.
Well, I
Yes,
would
ma'am.
say it's
We've
hard.
got a quote from the question from the guest that I'd like to ask before you jump into another real question. So one of the guests one of the people in the chat have asked, what would you do to promote cybersecurity training in high school? And have you seen his governor, Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, has done to promote computer science there in his state?
Oh, I will answer that because I did computer, IT information technology. That was one of my last jobs in the Department of Defense as a whole. And just learning from that, I see how we're very vulnerable. And I have not researched the governor of Arkansas, but I will do that. I will put that on my to-do list ASAP because I really feel going back to the STEM program, by putting more STEM in school, to science, technology, engineering, and math, we need to start training our younger people to start learning how to do that. And I'm glad you brought that up because I have a friend, I'm not going to mention any names, but they gave me a little tip and saying, we still have a lot of vulnerabilities within the DoD. And I have another friend who's starting his own private business, and I'm trying to help him and get him information on how to be secure in his own business so he won't be hacked by China, not Russia all the time. I'm so sick of hearing about Russia, but it's really China. And I will look into the governor of Arkansas's plan, but that's why I said in the beginning or the mid part of the show is to start where that try. A lot of these kids are smart. I saw a 5-year-old on all kinds of apps at the store. They knew how to work a phone properly that day and find an app for my points. But at the same time, that's where I want to have more investments back into the schools at the lower grade level. So a lot of our young kids can be trained and ready and prepared to get into a job market and to start having a public and private partnership, especially with the Department of Defense here at March, especially, so we can work on combating so we won't be attacked. Because I tell everybody this, in my prior experience, our biggest threat is a cyber attack, and that's from China.
Yeah, I agree. So hey, I'm getting a doctorate in economics, not a doctorate in English, so it's okay. I've got Spencer Clavin for that side of it.
So who's your favorite economist? I have a business degree, and I actually, one thing, I know a lot of people don't know this, but I went to a private college here. That was my choice, Christian school. And we did part of my economy class here. We went to Oxford to do the other part. So learning economics in England was very different and interesting, but I was introduced to Milton Friedman, to Hayek. So who was one of your favorite economists?
So Hayek's definitely high on the list. Road to Serfdom, but Mises,
Yes.
who Hayek was kind of the apprentice for or studied under Mises. So you can kind of follow the chain. You could go from Mises to Hayek to Friedman to Sol. Okay. Kind of a logical chain there. Of course, Mises and Hayek were both Austrian school, whereas Friedman was then the start of the Chicago school, which of course is a branch offshoot of Austrian. But just focused, Chicago focuses more on the analytical and a little less on the behavioral. But it is important there to note that, there's a lot of flow from Mises through Hayek down to Friedman into Sol and into a lot of us today who are these free market principalists who want to see, the end of subsidization of markets, who want to see, the market be able to flourish on its own and a walk back from Keynesianism, because Keynesianism just opens the door to crony capitalism. It just opens the door to government choosing who wins and who loses. When the government has, can claim it's for the better good, then they can take, the pigs and animal farm told everybody it was for their better good too. That, this is going to benefit everybody. But what we're seeing is that a lot of these companies, and we look at it right now, the left is complaining, well, Amazon and Walmart and all these owners of these companies, man, their wealth over the last 4 months has doubled or tripled.
Of course.
Well, yeah, you shut down all their competition, you idiots.
Yeah, of course. And guess what? They're all Democrats.
80% of the billionaires donate money. If you look at AOC, they always say, well, AOC doesn't take corporate money. But four of her top 5 donors are Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Twitter.
And they're all Democrats. Isn't that funny?
Amazon is a huge donor to AOC.
It's so funny. And when you bring that up, and I look at my friends on Facebook, on my personal profile, they're always talking about, we hate these big corporations and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, they're all Democrats. Walmart, the Walton family, they're Democrats. Jeff Bezos, Democrats. So you hate those Democrat multi-billionaires that had conglomerates and they dominated the market, but then you bash Home Depot that says, well, we have conservative values in Chick-fil-A, but to me, it mind boggles me. And some of these people are so-called highly educated. They have like 10 degrees, but they have no common sense. So you hate these people, but you're voting for those same representatives that are getting the donor money. Look at Dianne Feinstein. And a lot of people don't really pay attention to her as we have here in California, especially with her husband, Richard Bloom. Dianne Feinstein, I am so surprised she has not been put into Leavenworth. And I tell you this, she has committed so many crimes in Washington, D.C. by giving her husband a lot of these government contracts, buying up the post offices, and having a Chinese spy that she didn't even know was a spy for 20 years. But still, they keep voting for her. And that really mind boggles me. They talk about what Trump is doing, his family is doing, and all these backroom deals. But you have Dianne Feinstein, who's been a senator since I don't know when, Abraham Lincoln, and her and her husband has lived off the government, became multimillionaires, if not billionaires, because of the insider trading that she's been doing.
Yeah, her Nancy Pelosi. I mean, those families. Nancy Pelosi's husband is invested in a venture capital company and an investment firm that's heavily invested into Lockheed. And when Lockheed was behind on the F-35 and said, "Hey, we need another $1 billion," Nancy Pelosi happily signed off on it. For all the people who are upset about the military-industrial complex, this is money going directly there. So, Asia, I do want, we are going to be wrapping up here in just a moment. So I do.
And I want to come back on. I will use my consultant's computer and say, no, I'm going to sit here and use your computer so I can be live. So everybody can see me. I'm going to track him down. But I was going to use, he told me he would have let me use his computer for this, but he had to get home because his kids, he had to watch his kids because his wife teaches and does something that night. And so I said, no problem. But he said, if I ever get back on, I can use his laptop. And so I do apologize to everybody for this, but I really enjoyed this. And you asked me, what to take away. I want everybody to understand this, and especially a lot of the activists that I've been seeing on Twitter. You're doing a great job, but I really want a lot of people to start going and reaching out to their local GOP, to the local candidates, to candidates such as myself and others, and ask, how can I help your campaign so we can win and take back the House of Representatives and also maintain the Senate? And of course, we want to help the president all we want. I'm looking a little bit at his speech, and it's beautiful with the flags. But if you want to preserve the constitutional freedoms and maintain the republic, you're going to have to. I understand people want to be famous on Twitter. They want 1 million likes, they want 2 million likes, and they want to get invited to the White House. But if you're not willing to understand how this process works and understand what us candidates have to do to gain votes and raise money, we're going to lose. I want you to at least take 1 day or 2 days out of your week and say, I'm going to volunteer for this campaign. Let me get 5 other people. Let me get my household involved. Let me get my friends and community involved to help pass out literature, to make phone calls, and whatever the candidate needs you to do, because it is a big job. It's really running a company. You're running a business because you're selling yourself and you're trying to show people a different option that the incumbent hasn't been doing for years and years. And even maybe they're new incumbents and they're far left radicals like AOC and Ilhan Omar. So I really leave that to everybody. And I know there's factions and some people don't like some people. I try to stay out of it, and that's fine. But I really want everybody to pay attention and to work in their specific districts and really help out the local candidates, the state candidates, the school board candidates, and the federal candidates, because that's the only way we're going to make change is boots on the ground. And I tell everybody this, as California goes, the rest of the nation follows. And that's where I want people to really start. You're going to get your PhD in economy. Start talking about those things. Start educating. Use Twitter. Twitter is a great platform, even though there's some drama on there. So is Facebook. Start promoting the history of the Republican Party, the Black Republicans, Hispanic, Latino Republicans, women who have made and paved my way, such as Maggie Chase Smith. And so I tell people to really learn and understand what's going on, and to don't give up and keep fighting. If we don't win it, I mean, I pray that we do win it, and I hope we win it big, but start reaching out into your church. The church community is so huge. Craig Huey, who I was endorsed by, I got 5-star rating. He said if every Christian voted right, this whole country would turn red. And that's what we need to do. Start talking to our pastors, to deacons, the mothers of the churches, and start getting involved. But a lot of that, I see what's going on social media. Sometimes I get wrapped up into it too, but I had to push my way back. Start helping out the candidates. Stop going on Twitter to do it, but say, look, I'm going to take 3 hours of my time and phone bank for this person. Okay, I feel great. I don't know everybody's feelings on Scott Pressler, but I do give him a lot of credit to go into the communities and help clean up. And he goes out there and register people to vote. And that's where we need a lot of the people that I see very influential to have 100,000, 1 million followers. They doing that in the local level. Put your money where your mouth is and your energy out there and help us win these seats.
Yeah, Ross actually got to meet Scott the other day. He had come to Midland, and Ross and I both recently became volunteer deputy registrars, so we can now both register people in the state of Texas. I can register people here in Brazos County, and Ross can do it out there in Midland, Odessa. I'm not 100% certain what county that is, but I think Ross is frozen on us because that, or he is just really, really good at looking at the exact same way at the exact same time for the last 3 minutes or so.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
Ross there.
but that's my takeaway and my observation, because we are. I always say, we're 60 something days. I always say we're 30 days, because the mail out ballots, we need to really start pushing candidates. We need to really start spreading the message that resonates with the average American. the middle class America, the people who are under poverty line, and really start reaching out to them. And that's the only way we're going to win.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's all about getting people out there to vote and ensuring that as many people are voting as possible and hopefully voting for you. So
Yes.
it's up to you, the individual, to get them convinced to vote for you. And we hope that this video will encourage people to do so. I know we've gotten a decent amount of viewing, but you're more than welcome to share it to your fan base out there.
Yes.
Ensure that you see it, and that way, they get to get a little bit better feel for you, the person, because Ross and I don't do the typical boilerplate interviews. We kind of just have a conversation, and wherever the conversation goes, that's where it goes, and that's how you get to really find out about people. I'm looking at Ross's video, and I have no idea what it is.
I think he's trying to get back in.
Yeah, I think he had it backwards, and he was looking at like some cabling. At least I hope that was cabling. Could have
put
also.
it on selfie mode. Now he froze up again.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I heard him. You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Okay.
Ross, you're muted.
Yeah.
We're being hacked.
I tell you what. It's probably the fact that he's at a hotel or something of that nature and his Wi-Fi is not doing so good.
That's true too. I was in Florida last month and it was horrible.
So
I really enjoyed this, and I hope that, at least the Twitter world, they can hear what I have to say. I know I don't talk too much like videos and stuff on Twitter. I do go on Debbie Aldrich shows a lot. I can send you her info. She asked me to be back on. I will be on the War Room tomorrow with Owen Sawyer. And so, I tell people I try to do as much as I can, but my main focus is really talking to the constituent base here. And I know people say, why don't you do a video like him and all these other people? I said, I would love to. And eventually I will. But at the same time, I want to get in my car and start talking to the community here.
Okay,
because no,
the heck?
I see a wall.
I see a wall too, or a ceiling, one of the two.
Something.
There he is.
Oh.
What the heck? Laptop. Ross. Look, there's Ross.
There
I see
you go. Yay,
we see you. You're not on video, but that's okay. No one wants to see your ugly butt anyway. Hey.
Well,
Lord.
I want to say, Asia, we wish you all the best in your upcoming election. We want to, real quick, where can people donate to your campaign? Because a lot of our listeners are going to be outside of the state of California. They're not going to be able to come block walk for you. But where can they go and pitch in $5, $10, $15, $20, $2,600 to your campaign?
I love to hear the 2,600. You can go to my website, which is www.AjaASmith4FORCongress.com, and there is a donate button. If you're on Twitter, I have the link up there. If you're on Facebook, you can look for me on Facebook. It's the same way. And I tell everybody, if you're out of state, you can even message me. I have a lady who lives out of state who says she will help phone bank and text bank. And so I'm preparing the list for her, and she's doing it out of state. And if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. I just make sure you sign the Disclosure and Privacy Act that you won't sell the information or harass the voters here, because a lot of people don't understand out of state. People from out of state, they help other candidates in different states. They phone bank and everything else. In California, we did a lot of phone calls to get Trump to get him elected in 2016. And we were calling people in Las Vegas and Arizona. So if you're out of state, you can help me that way and even promote and push. And if you say, hey, I know this great gal in California and she's running for Congress and she wants to change everything around. And so let's chip in $5, $10, or $20. $25 would be even great. So you can go to my website. It's even on my Twitter page. You can private message me. If I have a little delays because Twitter messaging kind of gets screwed up sometime. and I get a lot of weird messages from inappropriate people that send me inappropriate things. So I try to weed those out.
Ross.
No, not him. It's Jeff. Jeff does it. I hope you hear me. No.
No, I was gonna say that was the reason Ross's stream messed up. It's because he had to respond to Jeff on Twitter.
Oh no.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no.
I see what it is, Ross. We're not
I-
important enough for you. You have to go respond to Jeff.
so I've got you guys here. I've got Jeff going on too. By the way, Asia, we know you're going to be on Jeff's show here shortly. You may be about 10% less entertaining than you have been with us, just because of the friendly rivalry we have.
Oh. And I'm going to judge it. I'm going to say, okay, who entertained me and who didn't entertain? I hope you hear it, Jeff. You better be entertained.
That's right. So, and I was going to say one other thing, Asia. You said it's hard sometimes to go out the way you look and convince people. Imagine being a congressional candidate that looks like this and trying to go out and convince people to vote for you when you're 30.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I do dress up. I wear my suit, I wear my heels, I wear my cute flats and everything else. I've seen candidates that I've met uh, who really dress very nice, business casual, and sometimes I'm like, okay, are they the candidate or are they the volunteer? And guess what? A lot of them have a lot more responses. I had my own event when I first ran, and I don't know what was going on with the cleaners, so I put on some nice jeans. I had some nice shoes, and I wore my campaign shirt. And I'm telling you, everybody loved it because they said, you know what? You look like us. You don't look like a door-to-door salesman. You don't look like you're selling life insurance. You don't look like a funeral parlor person. So it was really cool. And so depends on where I'm going. I'm having a fundraiser this Saturday. It's going to be outdoors. Of course, I'm going to dress nice. But sometimes I went to a community park meeting and I had some park clothes on. And so, and everybody said, wow, you look great. So, you know, I tell people is, and especially other candidates, dress for the appropriate time. If I'm going to a dinner, of course I'm dressing up. If I'm meeting people at a park, I'm looking like, hey, I look great, but at the same time I'm comfortable. I look like you just got off from work, and she's wearing jeans while I'm wearing jeans. So I relate to the community.
Got dressed for the job at hand. Gotta do it. All right, well, Asia, I want to thank you on my end. How it's been a great conversation, very enjoyable. Wish we could have seen you. You know that helps to be able to see eye contact and stuff of that nature. But I understand, you know, technical difficulties are what they are. We are no stranger to them. I mean, we literally just went through one about 5 minutes ago with Ross. So completely understandable. Hopefully we can get you back on again soon and with video, and we can do an even better conversation then.
Yeah, just let me know, and I'll just tell my consultant, no, I'm stealing your computer right now.
So just get one of the Awan brothers to come hook you up with a government computer. They seem to have
Oh my, it's like I don't even know what happened to that case. It just fell off the radar.
It was against the Democrats, so of course it did.
Yeah, and poor Seth Rich, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Well, Miss Asia, I am 3 hours ahead of you. Kyle is 2 hours ahead of you. So it is nighttime for us. It is Betty Bye time. But we want to thank you so much for coming on. Please, if you listen to this show, you've heard what Miss Asia had to say. You like what she had to say, or even if you didn't, but you kind of want to turn that seat red, get out and support these candidates. We have to support these local candidates in these local races. We can't just sit here and say, well, why do they vote for Democrats in the inner cities? Because they don't have good candidates that are running in those seats that are conservative and bringing those conservative values in. They don't feel valued by the GOP. They don't feel like we care about them. They don't feel like we're going to do anything to address their problems or help them. And so they vote the way they vote. It's on us to make that change. It's not on them. We've got to get out. We've got to do the outreach. We have to show that we care about that community and we want to see these people flourish and prosper and be just like the rest of America and have a have great opportunities. So please, I implore you, get out and support candidates like Miss Asia Smith and help her flip that seat red.
Thank you so much. And God bless you both. And God bless America.
God bless you. God bless you all. And have a great night.
Thanks and gig 'em, and God bless.
We're out, guys.
I just keep calling on the help of my peers. But their success makes me distressed. Things will be better when I disappear. Bouncing from city to state. Nothing feels great, I'm a committed disgrace. If I could get up, hold my chin up. Confidence is just a bluff for the weak. Might take a peek in my self-pity to realize it's selfishness for the meek. Just take these pills, it makes it better, but withdrawals will make you seize up and tweak. You gotta buy it every month, we change the brand, it's more expensive this week. I'll hold my chin up, keep this grin up like my mother, she can worry like me. But if I have you, life is worth it, love is more than a contagious disease. I think of you, I think of me, a family, is this another pipe dream? But if these dreams mean anything, I'm gonna think whatever I want to think. I just can't convince myself to look. Why can't I be strong in the place where you read your books? I just can't rely on happenstance. Didn't say goodbye before you died, I should have took that chance. But you'll never leave me, no, my heart is bleeding, and I know this feeling's not fleeting. Your hugs were the best thing, just wrapped up in your strength. I'd give up to be there right now. I just want you back, we all want that. I just wish that you hadn't forgotten. I hate this disease, I hate human beings. We fall apart before we get broken. I just can't believe you're not here with me. We should be out back sitting underneath that willow tree. Talk and I'd be listening. I didn't take the time to read your mind before you forgot me. Okay. But you'll never leave me, no, my heart is bleeding, and I know this feeling's not fleeting. Your hugs were the best thing, just wrapped up in your strength. I'd give up to be there right now. I just want you back, we all want that. I just wish that you hadn't forgotten. I hate this disease, I hate human beings. We fall apart before we get broken.